So, in the last topic, we were studying about the elements of culture. In the elements of culture, we studied the definition of E.B. Tyler and its different elements which were given therein. Then we talked about Carl Whistler and his cultural, non-material, and material elements. Then we understood these terms in a more specific manner, like the values, norms, sanctions, materials, tools. Then we studied about culture traits. Then we studied how the integration of culture traits forms a culture complex. Then how the culture complex integrate to form culture pattern. Yes. So when we were studying this topic, when we moved on to the patterns of culture, we found that it is not a random accumulation. It was that it is a whole greater than the sum of a part. Then we studied about A.L. Kroeber and his two patterns, that is basic pattern and the secondary pattern. After this, we moved on to study about Ruth Benedict and her contribution in this study of patterns of culture. So when I was teaching this Alpha A.L. Kroeber part, there was an issue with my mic, and so I will be repeating uh, this topic from here onwards. So, uh, when you were talking about culture pattern, we find that A.L. Kroeber in his book Configuration of Culture considers that culture has two patterns. One is the basic or systematic pattern. For him, basic and systematic patterns are stable, persistent, consistent organization of different traits. He gives an example of alphabet complex. These alphabet complex over the time have remained same or there have been very minimum changes. For example, if we talk about the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the different words which have been formed by these from these alphabets, the vocabulary, the grammar has actually remained same for a very long time. The same goes for Hindi also. The different words have come in, but the old words has remained, and the manner in which they have been formed has also continued so far. The second pattern which you talked about is the secondary pattern. For him these secondary patterns are relatively unstable and shows high degree of variety. Uh, he gives the example of social organization. For him, for example, a society is for example in society when we talk about marriage. So what happens that in marriage in Hindu marriage system we have a concept of gotra exogamy and caste endogamy. So it means that a family will try to marry his daughter or son within the same caste but outside the Gotra. Now Gotra and caste are two different concepts which we will study separately, but this is what the basic meaning is. Now what we are saying that this concept is more kind of a book view, that it is given in the books, but however in practice it is showing variety, it is showing variation. Like for example, there are different forces, there are different reasons like economy, politics, laws, rules, which are no which are bringing in flexibility in the constitution of marriage. Similarly, in marriage there are different types of marriages which are being emerging. For example, when we talk about live-in relationship, we are talk about same-sex relationship. So these all are variations in the institution of marriage in society under the societal organization. So for him, marriage uh, as a part of social organization is a secondary pattern. Yes. Uh, Moving forward, Ruth Benedict was also very much influenced by A.L. Kroeber. She was student of Franz Boas, and she belonged to the school of culture personality. She, in a book of Patterns of Culture, she added one more dimension to A.L. Kroeber's classification. She adds the new dimension of qualities. She adds a new dimension of qualities. So, when you talk about qualities, uh, according to her, these qualities exist. They exist everywhere in every society, in every organization of a social setting. That is, it persists in every system of organization within the culture. So, for her, these qualities are of two types. These qualities are of two types. One is Apollonian, and the other is Dionysian. Yes. Uh, we will be studying these two terms in detail under the School of Culture Personality when we will be studying about Ruth Benedict. But just remember that Apollyon is a more positive concept. That is, like these two are the two poles of a continuum, in which Apollyon represents the most positive side and Dionysian represents the more negative side. Apollonian and Dionysians are actually Greek mythological characters, in which Apollonian is considered as a hero, while Dionysian is portrayed as a villain. Yes. So, for Ruth Benedict, what happens that a culture exists in such a manner that there are two opposite poles which exist together. One is the Apollonian and the Dionysian. When we today talk about Ramayana, when we talk about Ram, we find that we idolize to become a Ram, that we consider to be the Apollonian side, that is the most positive side, and on the other side, we portray Ravan as the Dionysian or the negative, or as the negative part. Similarly, was other culture aspect also. Moving forward, like we will study this in detail, but let's keep this to here only. The third point, which will be about Ralph Linton. So what Ralph Linton did that for him, culture pattern consists of four dimensions. Culture pattern consists of four dimensions. Yes, in this four dimension, the dimensions are form, meaning, use, and function. Now, form represents a structural component of a pattern. That if a pattern is there in a culture, it will have a definite form of structure, and this structure may be like it may be perceived by our senses, or it may have an objectively defined structure. Yes, so it can be said it is perceived by senses and objectively described. Now, when we talk about meaning means that every culture trait, every culture complex will have certain meaning. So you can write anything, you can give examples by your own senses. So I will not be explaining these terms in more detail. Use will be that what is the use of a particular trait, at what time these traits can be used. When we talk about function, this function and use are very much related. But for Ralph Linton, he in function it includes the relationship between the culture traits and culture complexes. Yes. So all in all, these terms are very much similar, but this is what he gave, so we cannot do anything. We just need to mention these four terms, give a particular example of any cultural pattern of any culture trait which is present in your society or which is present in a tribe, and on that basis you can easily explain this. Yes. So the fourth point is of Clyde Luckhole. So Clyde Luckhole defined culture battles in five categories. The first category for him was compulsory category. The second pattern was preferred. Third was typical. Fourth, alternative. And fifth, restricted. Yes. So in compulsory, say that if there are many choices, then in that case, only one choice will exist and will be compulsion over other. In preferred, one choice, yeah, one culture will be practiced over other. In typical, there will be several choices, but more will one several choices, but one will be more expressed. In alternatives, for a particular end, for a particular purpose, there may be different culture, there may be different patterns to achieve it. In restricted, they like there are different patterns, but all are almost restricted, and there will be only specific part to a particular function or end. So this is what Clyde Lockhall said. Apart from that, if you want to give more examples, you can talk about how Edward Sapir talked about culture patterns in language. Similarly, like if you want to explain this, you can just write any language and show that that languages are formed in such a way that the grammars have shown a culture pattern. So it is kind of a primary culture pattern. And this you can give the example of adversary. Similarly, you can give the example of Victor Turner. So Victor Turner he gave the concept of liminality. Liminality is basically the transition phase between two rites of passages. There is this rite of passage, and when we transition to different types of passage, there will be a resting phase. This will be second rite of passage, and here will be a resting phase. So this is the liminality phase, and for Victor Turner, this translation phase within rituals reflects this phase it reflects a cultural pattern of transformation. Yes. So if you write all these examples, it will give you more marks than just general examples. This is what culture pattern is all about. You can write more points by your own. You can go on to write relevances. You can conclude by saying that cultures and patterns have that for an administrator, the understanding of a cultural pattern helps in him dealing with situations where things are not being defined in the laws, in the rules, or in the conduct book. So it will help administrators in dealing with situations. Yes, and this actually becomes very much important when we talk about Northeast India, and when we talk about regions of Chotanagpur Plateau, or even if we talk about the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Yes, so this is all about the patterns of culture. Um, in next video, I guess we will be talking about the characteristics of culture, and then after that, we will be discussing few terms which are related to it. That's it. Thank you. We will meet in the next video.